Welcome and study with Tanzania Institute of Education.
Hello students, my name is Ngala Abdallah Mtegetwa. I'm geography teacher. In the topic of river systems, we have a number of concepts we are supposed to understand. And those concepts will be well understood by taking into consideration of the guiding questions. We have questions related to the concept of river rejuvenation. I hope with those questions we had, everyone is now much aware with the concept of river rejuvenation. Moreover, at last, I left you with questions, and I hope the questions have been well done. So today, we are going to continue with other concepts related to the study of rivers. We are going to have the concept of river capture and the river regime. We are going to study the two by regarding the guiding questions. So here, let us start with question number 1. Describe the favorable conditions for the occurrence of river capture. Describe the favorable conditions for the occurrence of river capture. The question basically needs favorable conditions for the occurrence of river capture, but we are to start by establishing good introduction. In the introduction, we are to give the meaning of river capture. To give the meaning of river capture, it is important to have the general idea about it. Now here, before we give the definition, let us have the following illustration here. We have two different catchment areas. We have a river here with a tributary. The river lies adjacently to another river, but the two rivers extremely varied, as one is more powerful while the other is weak. This river is more powerful by having high volume of water, and the water used to flow at high speed than this. Now, if it happens, this river, by its tributary, makes headward erosion towards the catchment area of another river with low volume. In the long run, the headwater will diverge into the system of another river. The water will not flow to follow its normal course, will diverge into the system of another powerful river. Now this is considerable fluvial phenomena, of which in geographical context we call it as a river capture. Now by regarding this, river capture is defined as diversion of a river system into another system of powerful river. The fluvial phenomena used to involve two rivers. The powerful river, which we used to call it as a pirate river, and the one whose headwater diverged into another system, we used to call it as victim river. Therefore, I think here the definition can be clear by regarding the illustration we have here. Class, not all rivers undergo capture. Some rivers undergo capture, but others do not experience this fluvial phenomena. By that context of looking, it means the occurrence of river capture is made under certain encouraging factors, of which also considered as necessary conditions for the occurrence of river capture. One, as it has already been given in the introduction, the pirate river must be more powerful than the victim river by having high volume of water flowing at high speed. The so-called pirate river should be more powerful than the victim river. Should be more powerful in terms of high volume of water, in terms of high water velocity. 2, the pirate river and the victim river should lie adjacently to one another. The two must lie nearly to one another. It is difficult for a river, for rivers which are far enough to make or to undergo capture. For instance, we have Rufiji River. We have Msimbazi River. Msimbazi River is weak enough. Rufiji River powerful enough, but it is not possible for Rufiji River to capture Msimbazi River so long the two are not adjacently to one another. So river capture used to occur provided the two rivers, we mean the pirate river and the victim river, lie adjacently to one another. 3, the catchment area for the victim river should be of comparatively higher altitude than that of pirate river. My dear students, remember this. River capture used to occur as the pirate river makes headward erosion towards another river. So that is made possible if the catchment area of victim river is of higher level than that of pirate river. It means if this is in the low-lying part, it becomes difficult for this river to make headward erosion. So that is the third necessary condition. 4, the pirate river must make headward and vertical erosion towards the catchment area of victim river as what already given. And that is what we used to say the mode of occurrence for river piracy. So class, those are the necessary conditions. Those are the favorable conditions for the occurrence of river capture. I think you have enjoyed it. So here, we used to mark the end of question number 1. Question number 2, examine the role of the following fluvial phenomena on the evolution of landscape. We have separate entity there, A and B. A, river capture. B, river rejuvenation. It means we are supposed to show how river capture makes evolution of landscape, how river rejuvenation makes evolution of landscape. By regarding the order we have there, we are to start by showing on how river capture makes evolution of landscape. So you have to start by defining river capture, something we had it in question number 1. So make reference to that. So now we have to understand the way how that makes evolution of landscape. To understand that, let us take into consideration of the following. Class, as it has already been given, the river here, it has tributary, another river. The two lie adjacently to one another, but they are extremely not the same. As this more powerful, while this less powerful. Now, if this is in higher level of catchment area, there is a possibility for the tributary of more powerful river to make a headward erosion towards the catchment area of victim river. So long this river is less powerful, headwater automatically influenced to flow towards the system of powerful river. This is the phenomenon of river capture as we had in equation number 1. Now the occurrence of this fluvial phenomena used to make formation of certain features. This becomes distinctive feature. This is another distinctive feature. This is distinctive feature. Also at here there is occurrence of considerable distinctive feature. It means river pilot makes the occurrence of certain features, and the resultant features are what mark evolution of landscape. Therefore, we have to say river capture makes the evolution of landscape in areas of river valley by forming certain features. Now the resultant features should be described, should be disclosed. I hope, my dear students, you are aware enough with resultant features of river capture. Quickly look at here. This is distinctive appearance. So it is one of the features. This area has a distinctive appearance. We recognize it being another feature of river capture. This now has unique appearance. We regard it also another distinctive feature of river capture. And that here, there is a new appearance. We regard it as another feature of river capture. This feature, by name, we used to call it as the elbow point. The way it appears resembles to the appearance of this part of human body. This part now observed to have no water flow, so we used to call it as a dry valley. Here we have a river, but the river now does not receive headwater. As the headwater not received, it means it has low volume of water. By having low volume of water, we used to call it as a Mississippi stream. At here, headwater of victim river received. It means from this point towards low-lying areas, there is considerable increase of water volume. As the water volume increases, water velocity increases, so there is some sort of renewal of erosive activity. But erosive activity starts at here. As it starts at here, riverbed whose level lowered to the extent there is occurrence of sharp break here. The sharp break, we used to call it as a nick point. My dear students, as we were discussing guiding questions pertaining river rejuvenation, we had the concept of nick point. Nick point produced by river rejuvenation, but the phenomena of river capture influences river rejuvenation. So we also regard nick point as another feature of river capture. So generally, river capture makes the evolution of landscape, especially in areas of river valley, by forming certain landforms. So the landforms we have here, I have given the nature and the occurrence of elbow point, that is much clear to you. The nature and the occurrence of dry valley, I hope also this is much clear to you. The nature and the occurrence of Mississippi stream. So at last here, I used to make emphasis on the nature and the occurrence of nick point. this is the sharp brick along the bed of Pirate River. The idea you should have here, at this point, headwater of Victim River received. So from this point, towards the low-lying areas, volume of water increases and also the velocity or speed of water increases. Thus, from this point towards the low-lying areas, there is some sort of renewal of erosive activity. Now, because of the renewal of erosive activity, the appearance does not remain the same. As from this part towards the low-lying areas, the bed lowered enough. The bed, by being lowered, at here, there is the occurrence of sharp break. That sharp break, in the study of river systems, known as Nicky Point. If we can regard the demand of the question, this is the way on how river capture makes evolution of landscape. But remember, our question has two parties in terms of A and B. A, we are to show the role of river capture on the evolution of landscape. B, the role of river rejuvenation on the evolution of landscape. My dear students, I would like you to have the same idea. River rejuvenation also makes the evolution of landscape by forming certain features. Good enough. In the discussion of river rejuvenation, we have seen the features formed by river rejuvenation. So those features which we have seen are the ones which mark the evolution of the landscape. As a matter of reminding you, we had the features of valley within the valley, Nicky Point, river terraces, incised meanders, and the abandoned meanders. So those should appear in the second part of our question. I think, class, we can be together up to this extent. And by that point, we are through with question number 2. Number 3. The question asks us, explain any 80 factors responsible for the occurrence of river regime. My dear students, the river regime can be defined if we develop the following reflection. River, in a river, water of certain volume contained. But the volume of water contained in the river, not constant throughout the year, used to undergo fluctuation. As in certain periods in a year, water volume fluctuates high. In other periods, water fluctuates low. So rivers used to undergo this fluvial phenomena of water volume fluctuation. This fluvial phenomena of water volume fluctuation is what geographically understood as a river regime. So by regarding this, river regime is defined as the annual seasonal variation of water volume in the river system. But classy, this fluvial phenomena extremely varied, as some rivers in a year fluctuates once, or used to have one peak of high water. Some rivers in a year used to have 2 peaks of high water. Others in a year used to have more than 2, more than 2 peaks of high water. So considerably to this, river regime extremely varied. By being extremely varied, recognized and established to have certain types. Here we have 3 dimensions, and thus we have 3 types of river regime. One, that by rivers which develop 1 peak of high water in a year, that understood as a simple river regime. But if river undergoes 2 peaks of high water in a year, we used to say double river regime. But if a river used to develop more than 2 peaks of high water in a year, that is complex river regime, as it has been given in our introduction there. Kwamba river regime has 3 types of simple, double, and complex. But don't get lost. The question we have needs us to give any 80 factors for the occurrence of river regime. It means we are to give out the variables which make fluctuation of water volume in the river system. These considerably include the following. 1, we have the factor of climate. That is by variation of rainfall and the temperature in different geographical regions. For instance, in areas of tropical, we used to experience 1 wet season. Thus, it is obvious for rivers to develop 1 peak of high water. But in other areas, like off equatorial, rains, of course, high throughout the year, but characterized by 2 maxima peaks. Because of the 2 maxima peaks of rainfall, rivers there used to undergo double river regime, used to develop 2 peaks of high water in a year. So, pertaining to this explanation, climate is one of the factors which influence a river regime. 2, we have size of the catchment area. Class, look here. We have a river with a number of associated tributaries. Now the area, the main river and the tributaries flow, understood as catchment area or drainage basin. It means this is also catchment area. But the two not the same. They used to differ in terms of size. This catchment area limited, while this large enough. It means here water received from wider parties. Here water received from limited part. So there is a possibility for this river in wider catchment area to undergo frequent fluctuation of water volume as it can be compared to a river in smaller catchment area. So the size of the catchment area is another ideal factor influencing the fluctuation of water volume in the river system. 3, nature of underlying rocks in terms of permeability. Look here. In the catchment area, underlying rocks can be permeable or impermeable. From the geography of Form 5 we had, we know for sure that permeable rocks are the ones which allow penetration of water by being porous or pervious, while impermeable rocks are the ones which do not allow penetration of water by being neither porous nor pervious. So if the underlying rocks are permeable, water easily disappear by percolating, and thus high volume of water not retained. But if the underlying rocks impermeable, restriction of water into the ground is restricted, and thus relatively to other factors like climate, a river readily retains high volume of water. So the nature of underlying rocks in terms of permeability is another ideal factor for the occurrence of river regime. I would like you to have this. We have areas of limestone rocks where karst scenery develop. A good number of karst scenery areas experience high rains, but there rivers seldom flood as limestone rocks naturally permeable. It means water supplied by the occurrence of rains easily disappear into the ground by percolating. My dear students, don't get lost here. Remember, we are discussing factors for the occurrence of river regime. Factor 4, we have type of soil. Of course, surface of different areas is of soil. Soil, extremely varied area to areas. For instance, some areas may have clay soil. Clay soil naturally impermeable by having much smaller pore spaces. Other areas used to have sandy soil, soil of large particles. The soil, by being of large particles, obviously observed to have large pore spaces. So where the soil is of clay, impermeable, water easily retained at the surface, and the river may develop high volume of water easily, as it can be compared to where the soil is of sandy. Sandy soil naturally permeable, while clay soil naturally impermeable. Clay impermeable by having much small open spaces, as the particles lie closely to one another compared to sandy soil. I think this can be clear to you. Another factor, we have gradient. By gradient, we consider slope steepness of the catchment area. It is like this. This is the catchment area making the long river profile. Here, the gradient is steep. Here, the gradient more gentle. The gradient, by being steep, water freely flows towards the low-lying areas, and therefore rivers in steep sloped areas mostly do not fluctuate much high, as water not retained at the surface. It is unlike if compared to areas of gentle slope, free flow of water restricted here, thus much water retained at the surface, rivers easily develop high volume of water. So if other factors remain favorable, if other factors remain constant, areas of more gentle slope, rivers easily fluctuate high in terms of water volume, as it can be compared to areas of steep slope. We have vegetation. Vegetation, there we consider the nature and the extent of plant covers in the catchment area. Classy, vegetation used to make transpiration. Vegetation used to make evapotranspiration. Thus, if the area has greater extent of plant covers, amount of water reaching the surface much lowered because of evapotranspiration as well as transpiration. Then we have the factor of human activities. Of course, in catchment areas, people used to conduct a number of activities. Some of the activities used to consume water. So if the catchment area is under numerous human activities like irrigation, volume of water easily fluctuates low. Then we have the factor of the extent of ground saturation. Look here. The ground below the surface, it can be much saturated with water. If much saturated with water, percolation restricted as all pore spaces filled with water. And therefore, where the ground much saturated with water, river easily fluctuate high in terms of water volume. But where the ground less saturated with water, even if there is occurrence of heavy rain, it may take time for the river to develop high volume of water. So fluctuation of water volume in the river system partly depends on the extent of ground saturation. So class, those are the factors which influence river regime. Still remember, when we talk of river regime, we mean variation of water volume in the river system in an annual basis. So variation does not occur merely. The variation is made by certain variables. So the variables which make variation of water in the river system are the ones typically being factors influencing the occurrence of river regime. My dear students, the way I have given here, I hope you have enjoyed it. So, being the case, we are through with question number 3, and let us take time to continue with another question. Question number 4. Variation of water volume in the river is an inevitable circumstance. Discuss. If we can regard what we had with the question number 3, we are now much aware with the variation of water volume. The same as to say fluctuation of water volume as we had in the concept of river regime. But there we are asked that is inevitable phenomena or inevitable circumstance discussed. So you should ask yourself, judge into your mind if that is inevitable circumstance or not. Of course, it is commonly known that variation of water volume in the river system is inevitable, as most of the rivers subjected to factors which make variation of water volume. Rivers, almost all, subjected to factors which make fluctuation of water volume. By being subjected to such factors, definitely, the variation of water volume is an inevitable circumstance. And therefore, here we are to discuss by giving out the factors which make variation of water volume. Factors which make variation of water volume. As we used to follow clearly here, the factors which we have given, for the occurrence of river regime should remain the same. Variation of water in the variation of water volume in the river system used to occur because of climate variation. If at a time the climate is of high rains, definitely river used to fluctuate high in terms of water volume compared to periods of low rains. 2, size of the catchment area. If the river is in a larger catchment area, it means used to pass through areas experiencing different climatic types, like River Nile, which used to pass through areas of 4 different climatic types. So in response to that, likely to fluctuate frequently. 3, we have nature of underlying rocks in terms of permeability, where underlying rocks are permeable, as we can tip the case of limestone rocks areas. Water volume easily fluctuates low by percolating into the ground, as we know for sure that limestone rocks are naturally permeable. 4, type of soil, where soil is permeable by having larger open spaces or pore spaces. Water volume easily fluctuates low as a lot freely percolate into the ground. Then we have the factor of gradient, where gradient steep, water volume easily fluctuates low, as it can be compared to where the gradient gentle or more gentle. Water volume easily fluctuates high by being retained. Human activities, like that of irrigation, used to lower the volume of water as a lot considerably consumed to irrigate crops. Then the extent of ground saturation, water fluctuates high easily if the ground of catchment area much saturated with water compared to where the ground less saturated with water. So my dear students, the factors which we have given for the occurrence of river regime should remain the same, because river regime is about variation of water volume in the river system. And there we are told variation of water volume is an inevitable circumstance. So factors for river regime should be the same, factors which make variation of water volume in the river system inevitable phenomena. So by that point, we are through with question number 4. I think you have enjoyed that. So let us make potential progress by looking question number 5. It has 2 parts, A and B. A, describe river regime. B, why is the study of river regime important in the development of Africa? River regime is about variation of water volume, but the dimension of variation not the same to all rivers around the world, as some rivers, like the ones found in tropical areas, fluctuate once. Others, like the ones in equatorial regions, fluctuate twice. And some rivers, especially those which used to pass through areas of different climatic types, like Nile, Mississippi, fluctuate more than 2. So river regime is of 3 types. We have simple river regime, double river regime, complex river regime, something which has already been given. So being the case, I think we can continue with part B. Why is the study of river regime is important in African development. I would like you to have the following reflection here. In catchment areas, the same to say, in areas of drainage basin. As a matter of reminding ourselves, when we talk of catchment area, drainage basin, we mean the same area through which river and the associated tributaries pass through. Now, in the catchment areas, a number of projects or a number of activities conducted. But so long these are areas of river flow, implementation of such projects can be blocked in time when the river flood. Therefore, it is important to consider the dimension of water volume fluctuation. It is important to consider when the river flood and when the river used to have low volume of water, to the extent you can develop good planning on how the project or activity can be implemented. So there we say, the study of river regime is important in African development as implementation of projects in areas of river basin considers the dimension of river water volume fluctuation as follows. We have a number of aspects to say pertaining to that. One, it directs good plan of dams construction for hydroelectricity production. For example, the construction of Akosombo Dam in Ghana considered the flood pattern of Volta River. Here you can initiate the construction of the dam. But as you initiate the construction, at the same time, river flood, of course, implementation here cannot be proper. So the construction of the dam should be done when you are sure that the river does not flood. Two, it directs good planning of dams construction for irrigation purpose. For example, the construction of dams under Gezira irrigation scheme in Sudan. The construction of the dams for irrigation purpose consider the flood pattern of River Nile. It directs good plans of dams construction for flood controls. We used to control floods by constructing dams, but implementation becomes effective enough when the river does not flood. So you as the implementer should make sure that when the river does not flood to the extent you can make more emphasis to construct the dams. Otherwise you may fail. It directs good planning for organization of agricultural activities in areas of river basin. A good number of river basin areas are used for crops cultivation. But crops cultivated when people are sure that the river does not flood. Then it directs good plans for transport infrastructures construction like roads, railway, and bridges across areas of river valley. For example, the construction of Mkapa Bridge in Tanzania considered the flood pattern of Rufiji River. So these aspects of narration used to show on how the study, when we talk of the study, the same as to say the consideration of river regime important in African development. It means if the dimensions of floods for the rivers are not taken into consideration, we may find ourselves fail to implement projects in areas of catchment area. So it is important to make such consideration, to make such a study to the extent the project can be effectively implemented. I think, class, that can be clear to everyone here. So by that point, we used to mark the end of question number 5. Question number 6 asks us, climate is the most important control factor that influence river regime. Discuss. You know, river regime is influenced by a number of factors, including climate. Apart from climate, we have the factors of the nature of the underlying rocks, gradient, size of the catchment areas, and the others. Class, if all factors influencing river regime compared, we find the climate appears the most active, while the rest are passive. The rest are passive as used to influence, as used to make influence depending on the influence of climate. So in that context of consideration, climate appears the most important factor influencing river regime. But its influence is by occurrence of rainfall and the temperature. But class, this is important to understand. Worldwide, climatic conditions not the same. I mean, climate worldwide has remarkable variation. Because of remarkable variation, its influence appears not the same to all areas around the world. Thus, the influence of climate of river regime, the influence of climate on a river regime, well discussed by taking into consideration of the different climatic types. The most pronounced climatic types influencing river regime, we have alpine, temperate, tropical, and the others. So we have to see how each makes distinctive influence. To start with alpine climate, climate experienced in mountainous areas. In such areas, rivers hoole fed by water of melting ice. Thus, rivers in areas which experience alpine climate used to flood in summer season as the ice melts, used to fluctuate low in winter season as water over landscapes frozen. That situation prevails because in alpine climate, rivers hoole fed by water of melting ice. But temperate climate, in a temperate climate, rains experienced almost throughout the year because of convergence of air masses. But the temperature there has a remarkable variation. We have a period of high temperature when the sun is virtually overhead. We have the period of low temperature when the sun is not overhead. So the period of high temperature makes what we used to say summer season. The period of low temperature makes what we used to say winter season. But remember, in areas under temperate climate, rivers will fed by water of rainfall. Thus, pertaining to the nature of climate, rivers flood in winter season. Rivers fluctuate low in summer season. They used to fluctuate low in summer season as water supplied by the occurrence of rains, not retained, by being excessively evaporated, excessively transpirated because of high temperature. But in the winter season, rains used to occur and the water retained by being less evaporated, by being less transpirated. So the situation of river regime in areas of temperate climate quite different as it can be compared to areas under alpine climate. In areas of alpine climate, rivers used to flood in summer season. But in areas of temperate climate, rivers fluctuate low in summer season, and vice versa is true. Tropical climate, the climate we used to experience. Our climate is of fairly high, constant temperature. But there is a remarkable variation of rainfall. Remarkable variation of rainfall makes wet and dry seasons. Temperature, by being fairly high, this does not make variation. Variation used to occur with something which varies, but there is a little variation of temperature in areas of tropical. In areas of tropical, there is a remarkable variation of rainfall. Thus, regime of rivers in areas under tropical climate follow variation of rainfall. So rivers used to flood in wet season as a lot of water supplied by the occurrence of rains. Rivers used to rivers used to fluctuate low in dry season as rains not experienced. It means water not supplied. Then we have equatorial climate. Equatorial climate is of constant high temperature throughout the year. It means the climate has little variation of temperature. Rains experience the high throughout the year with the two maxima peaks. Rains high enough in 2 periods within a year. Therefore, the two maxima peaks of rains make rivers to undergo double river regime, as the case of Congo River in Africa, Amazon River in South America. Then we have hot desert climate. Hot desert climate by nature is hot and dry. The climate of high temperature, the climate of no or little rains. Thus, rivers in hot desert areas seldom flood. Lastly, we have exceptional rivers. We mean the ones which used to pass through areas of different climatic types like that of Nile. Such rivers in a year frequently fluctuate. They used to fluctuate more than twice, and thus they are made to have what we used to say complex river regime. So my dear students, we can support the statement of the question. Climate is the active factor for the occurrence of river regime. By being active, it appears the most important factor for river regime. And that used to make influence by rainfall and temperature, but the influence is not the same to all areas around the world because of its remarkable variation. So class, with that point, we are through with question number 6. As we are about to end the class, I would like to give you the following questions.
Let's study, be educated, let's study, be educated,
So my dear students, you are going to use the knowledge you have obtained by regarding the guiding questions we had to answer these questions. Thank you very much. Goodbye.